It looks like the simplest mobile game ever. Until now, Mob Control has been downloaded over 100 million times and made more than $200 million in revenue. But how is that possible? What's the process behind this massive success? In this video, we'll walk through every stage of the process, from a simple idea to becoming a multi-million-dollar hit. It all starts with one thing. Every big hit starts small. At this stage, it's not about graphics or polish. Developers build the most basic version of the idea just to test if the mechanic is fun. For Mob Control, that core mechanic was multiplying stickmen. One simple loop, but enough to catch attention. The goal is to find out as fast as possible if this MVP or minimum viable product has potential on the market with real players. So developers try to invest as little time as possible into creating the first prototype. The first version of Mob Control was built in just 1 week. That was in 2021. Back then, prototypes could be made in days. But things have changed. Now they demand more features, more polish and more development time. Mob Control's mechanic was quite unique. There were multiplayer games with swipe mechanics and destroying or defending, but no one executed in this way. Once the prototype is ready, publishers usually put a few $100s into ads, just enough to bring in early players and see how they react. At this stage, the only questions are, how cheap is it to get one download? This is what is called the CPI, or cost per installation. How long do players play the game? And do players come back after 1 day? That's what's called retention. If the numbers are bad, the game is dropped. If they are good, the game moves forward. For developers, this is one of the hardest decisions to make. Should you keep investing time, energy, money and resources into an existing game, or take away the learnings and start a new project? The objective of a test is to predict if a game has real potential, if players actually enjoy playing it. The goal is to keep players engaged for the long run, not just a few minutes. The ultimate goal is a profitable game. That means the LTV, the lifetime value, the revenue one player generates over time, has to be higher than the CPI. And the only way to know is by looking at the numbers. In the first test, the targets are usually about 30 minutes of playtime, 30 to 40% of players coming back on day one, and the CPI under $2. But these benchmarks can shift a little depending on the publisher or game genre. In reality, 9 out of 10 prototypes die here. Mob Control could have easily been dropped if the first test flopped, but it had amazing, almost launch-ready numbers from the very first prototype. After a successful first test, the game moves into the next stage. At this stage, developers focus on refining the game, improving visuals, polishing gameplay, adding new levels, skins or other content. The goal sounds simple: keep players engaged for longer. More playtime means a healthier, more sustainable game. While early testing often looks at day 1 or day 3 retention, later iterations shift towards long-term engagement. But it's not just about retention rates. Each test provides valuable insights into overall user behavior, which helps to predict if the game has potential to become a top-grossing title in the future. This stage can last for months, with developers shipping frequent updates to test new features and mechanics. Mob Control is a really good example. The first version was built in just 1 week and quickly became one of the most successful hyper-casual games in 2021. Just 3 months after its global launch, a new team of 4 people took over with the mission to evolve Mob Control from a hyper-casual game, where the main revenue comes from ads only, into a hybrid casual game, where the main revenue relies on in-app purchases. The transition took over 9 months of development, where the team added card systems, base building and other retention features. A key tool during this process is A/B testing. In an A/B test, a part of the audience sees version A, another part sees version B, and the results determine which version performs better. These tests are run across the entire ecosystem: in-game features and mechanics, ad creatives, app store assets, monetization strategies, and more. The purpose is always the same: maximize retention and LTV. Every time a new feature or update is introduced, the game is validated against target KPIs. If the numbers remain strong, the cycle continues. At this stage, publishers typically spend only a few $100s on ad campaigns, just enough to validate learnings, but this alone doesn't make a $100 million plus hit. The key profitability metric is ROAS, return on ad spend. Mob Control reached 160% ROAS at day 120. That means if a publisher spent $1 to acquire a user, that user generated $1.60 within 120 days through ads or in-app purchases. This is where publishers turn a game into a money printer, and with Mob Control it worked perfectly. So in this stage, publishers are spending big on ads, because now they know the math works. CPI is lower than LTV, so basically a game is printing money at this moment. But scaling isn't without risks. CPI usually rises as budgets increase. There's also the danger of market saturation. Once most of the interested players have already tried the game, growth slows. That's why many titles peak early and fall down, although they have strong initial performance. But this was not the case for Mob Control. From the first test, the game had very good numbers that made it profitable and scalable. scalable. The publisher is testing hundreds of ads simultaneously, and even after 100 million plus downloads, the game kept growing, which is a clear sign that the concept worked and is still working. With ads running worldwide, installs explode, millions of downloads means millions in revenue. Mob Control isn't a success story on its own. Back in 2021, most chart-topping hits were hyper-casual games. Super simple mechanics, players tried them for a few days, then moved on. Monetization relied almost entirely on ads. Publishers aimed to recover user acquisition spend almost immediately, and margins were thin. The gap between CPI and revenue was much smaller than today. But Mob Control broke that pattern, evolving into the hybrid casual space. The game added depth, encouraging players to stick around much longer. Monetization blended ads with in-app purchases driving the most value, and this model turned short-lived hits into long-term games that could run for years. For hyper-casual developers, this was a tremendous shift. Some even argue hyper-casual is dead. In 2021, hyper-casual still made up 36% of the 100 most downloaded games and accounted for 27% of all mobile game downloads. During the pandemic, the genre dominated the charts. Ultra-low CPI made these tiny games incredibly profitable. But things changed fast. After the pandemic, the market became oversaturated and scalable concepts grew harder to find. The breaking point came in April 2021, when Apple's IDFA privacy changes disrupted targeted advertising. Suddenly, CPI surged and the hyper-casual business model built entirely on cheap user acquisition started to collapse. That's why publishers like Voodoo shifted strategy. Instead of chasing quick ad-driven revenue, games needed a more stable foundation in in-app purchases. Hybrid casual became the answer. And Mob Control was one of the first big games that shifted successfully. The game still has ads, but it also includes different in-app purchases. Talking about in-app purchases, this is also where today's sponsor comes in. Solar is a video game commerce company that helps both mobile and PC developers monetize and distribute their games. They handle all the hard parts, payments, regional restrictions, currencies, compliance, and let you focus on making your game. You can easily set up in-game payments, web shops, subscriptions, and even cross-platform login systems, all without getting buried in technical complexity. Integration is fast. Their PlayStation plug into Unity, Unreal, and most engines in just a few steps. Solar does not charge any upfront setup or integration fees. Their pricing model is straightforward and transaction-based. 5% fee on every transaction, no monthly minimum or hidden charges, and no fees for user accounts, monthly active users, concurrent users, or dashboards. They handle global taxes, fraud protection, compliance, and over 1,000 payment methods in 200 plus regions. But Solar is not only an amazing tool for the web. Currently, and as a result of recent federal court decisions, Apple and Google now allow external payments in certain regions. Solar's mobile buy button lets you redirect players to your own checkout, dramatically cutting platform fees and boosting revenue. Because with Apple or Google Pay, you usually have to pay a fee of 30%, but now you can save even more and just pay a 5% fee, whether you're launching on web, mobile, or both. Solar is the go-to partner for secure, scalable, and flexible game commerce. If you're building a game with in-app purchases, check out the link in the description. But the game does not make $200 million in revenue just by adding a few in-app purchases. Mob Control is heavily focusing on live ops. This means once the game is published, it is not static. It keeps changing with limited time events, special offers, and new content updates, seasonal events, and challenges that keep players coming back. Live ops are basically the ongoing work that makes a game last much longer and earn much more. Just in Q1 of 2025, Mob Control generated a revenue of over $7.9 million just in in-app purchases. Mob Control isn't unique in its approach. The same formula built other massive hits. Almost every mobile game starts with a small prototype that gets tested as fast as possible. What doesn't work, grow what does. It's not luck, it's a repeatable system. The golden era of making money fast with super simple games is over. Of course, there are always exceptions. If you want to succeed in mobile, you need to create a product that players stick to for a longer time. Even though the first prototype may still be spare, without any deep progression features, there should always be a plan on how to convert this simple core loop into a game that people will love to play for months. Progression and meta features are no longer optional things to add, but should be taken into consideration from the ideation stage. Try to build the prototype as fast as possible and test it with real players to get early feedback and see if it is worth investing months into an idea or not. So the next time you see a simple mobile game topping the charts, remember, behind that game is a system designed to turn prototypes into millions. We hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, join our Discord. See you next time. Ciao.